Imagine a habit tracker for Notion that tracks both your current and longest habit streaks with a simple and flexible setup process that allows you to set up daily and non-daily habits, and visual analytics to look back on your daily, weekly, monthly, and even yearly habit data. That's exactly what we're going to build today. And if you don't want to build it yourself, just check the link in the description below to get a copy of the template completely for free. All I ask for in return is to please like this video and subscribe to my channel to help me reach my goal of getting 1000 subscribers before the end of the year. This is a complete follow-along tutorial with step-by-step instructions, so please feel free to adjust the video playback speed whenever needed to get the most out of it. By the end of it, you will have learned a ton about the different features that Notion has to offer to build entire app experiences right within your workspace. And now, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, let's start building, and today we start completely from scratch. So all you can see right now is me on a new page in my Notion workspace. And I'm gonna start off by giving this page the title Habit Tracker, and by adding an icon for which I'm gonna choose a square check mark. Then I'm gonna jump into the page and I'm gonna type /call to create a callout block. And I like to give it a gray background because I use this to create sections within my dashboard pages. Inside, I'm gonna type 2 hashtags followed by a space to create a heading 2 block, and I'm gonna call it simply content. Now I press enter once more and I type /data, and from the drop-down menu I'm now going to choose database full page, because now we're going to create our first database and the most important one for this template. When clicking on it, you will immediately be forwarded into this new database page, which I'm going to call Habit Database. And I'm also going to give this one a database icon. The next thing I'm going to do here with this view is make a right click on it and then rename it to all. And also I'm going to change the icon and I give it the database icon as well. And then you can click anywhere to close this drop-down menu. And now what we're going to do is create all the different properties that we need to create this habit tracker. First, I'm going to rename this title property and I call it habit instead. Then I'm going to click on the plus symbol here to create another property, and here I can type in number because I want a property of the type number here. Then I'm going to click on the plus symbol again, and now I'm going to look for a date property and I choose type date. Then we click on the plus symbol again and type select to create a select property, and this one I'm going to call status. And in this select property we have to create 3 different options. To create the first one, I'm going to click here on add an option and I'm going to type done followed by a checkmark emoji, and I'm going to change its color to green. Then I click on the plus symbol again to create another one, and this one I'm going to call missed. And then I'm going to create one more. I'm going to call this one pending, and I just move it all the way to the bottom. The next property that we're going to create by clicking on the plus symbol is going to be a button. Just type in button, I select it, and then I change the name to done button before clicking here on edit automation. And up here, I'm going to change the label to simply done, followed by a check mark in the top here of this automation menu. And next I can click on new action to define what's happening when this button is clicked. And here I'm going to select edit property, status, and done. I click save. Next up, I'm going to make a right click on this done button and click on duplicate property. I'm going to click on it. This one we're going to call missed button. Then I click on edit automation again, and this one I will give the title missed. And then instead of setting the status to done, this time we're going to set the status to missed. Saving, and I'm going to move the number property to the front and make it smaller by pressing Alt plus left click, and then I can make this small. Now we are already getting to a very important step, and this is setting up the actual habits. All I have to do is click on this little blue arrow in the top right, and here we'll see the option to create a new template. So let's click on this one. And what we're going to do here is set up our first habit. And for me, this is going to be to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I will also assign an icon to it, which fittingly we are going to choose an alarm clock. And because this is going to be the first habit of my day, I'm going to give it number 1 to always show it first. And now important here in the date property, we have to click on it once. And up here, you can choose the today placeholder. So for the template, whenever we create a new one with it, it will automatically assign today's date to it. Next, to create our second habit, we can open the menu again, click on the three-dot menu, and instead of creating a new one, we just duplicate the existing one. And this one, we can give a new name. I'm gonna give it the meditation name because this is my second habit I wanna track. And I'm gonna assign the meditating man emoji. And the only thing I'm going to change here now is change the number to 2 because this is the second habit of my day. And again, I click outside and I'll do the same thing one more time by clicking on three-dot menu here and duplicating the meditation habit once more. And now I'm going to create a last habit that I want to track. For me, no coffee. And here I'm going to choose the coffee cup emoji and I'm going to change the number to 3. And then I can already click out. And as you can see now in our menu, we have already created 3 habits that we want to track. Now, one important thing that we have to add to the habit templates is the setting for them to repeat automatically and add to our database without us having to do this manually, which is also what sets this habit tracker apart from other ones that don't offer this kind of flexibility. To do so, we're going to open up the template menu for this database where we can define the template repeat settings for each habit. So in this case, for the meditation habit, I'm going to set the repeat to daily because I want to repeat my meditation every day. I can just save, and now you can see the repeat cycle has switched to every day, which you can now see also by this little indicator here saying that this will repeat daily. And I'm also going to set the exact same setting to my no coffee habit, daily, save, every day, set to repeat daily. But what if I have a habit that I don't want to track every day of the week? For example, what if I only want to wake up at 6 o'clock Mondays to Fridays, and on the weekend I want to allow myself to sleep in? With this habit tracker, you can easily do so by setting the repeat settings to weekly and then just defining the weekdays where you want it to show up in your habit tracker. So in my case, I'm just going to set it to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I'm going to leave Saturday and Sunday toggled off, which means that this habit is only going to appear from Monday to Friday in my habit tracker. Another cool thing that we can do because of this feature in Notion is we can easily pause or turn off a habit that we don't currently want to track. So for example, maybe you're on a no coffee challenge, so you want to have this habit daily for the next 30 days. But then after 30 days, actually you have completed your challenge. All you have to do is just go into the settings and turn the repeat setting to off. You don't have to delete the habit from your habit tracker. You don't have to delete any of its data. All you have to do is turn off the repeat setting and you can turn it off and on as you wish. This habit tracker is really as flexible as you want it to be. Now I want to put in some manual sample data. So now, first of all, I'm going to just add every habit once by clicking on the template from the menu. Now what I want to sort it by is first the date, and I'm going to set this to descending, which means the newest entries are always going to be at the top. And I'm also adding a second sort, which I'm going to choose number, and I also set this one to descending. And now I'm going to duplicate these entries and assign the different dates so that we have some data to work with. And for this, I'm just going in here and I duplicate all these entries multiple times. And now I just have to assign different dates. Okay, now you can see we have data ranging from the 13th of November to the 20th of November. The last thing I'm going to do with this sample data is assign a status, so either done or missed. There's one more thing that I need to do to our status property, and that is to change the order of these. And I want to move the pending status option to the top. Once I've done this, I can click anywhere to get out of this menu. I scroll up and now we can click on the plus symbol to create other views to look at this data in different ways. And the first one I'm going to choose is the gallery view. And here I will just quickly make a right click to rename it. I'm going to call it today. Press enter to change it. Then I click on layout to change how it looks. I'm going to set the card preview to none, the card size too small. The rest I leave as it is. And in the properties menu, I move the properties that I want to see up to make them visible. So in my case, I want to have the status up here, I want to have the done button up here, and I want to have the missed button up here. Then I can close this. And we can now also click on the filter, because obviously for the today view, we want to filter by date, and we want to set the start date to is, and then click here on the drop-down menu to today. I can click here to close the filter menu, and then I can click here on these two arrows to create a sort, for which I want to start off with the status, which I'm going to set to ascending, and I'm going to add another sort, which is going to be by number, also set to ascending. And now we can just duplicate this view to create a yesterday view, because oftentimes we will track our habits for the last day on the morning of a new day. So let's right click, duplicate, and then change the name to yesterday. And the only thing we have to change here now is click on the filter and change the date filter to is yesterday. The next view that I'm going to create is a list view. And for this, I'm not going to create one. I'm going to just right click on our table view, duplicate it. And this one I'm going to call list. And I remove the icon, but now I'm going to change the layout by clicking on it to an actual list. And in the properties menu, we again have to choose the different properties we want to see. I'm going to move the status all the way to the top to have it visible in the front. And then I'm going to move up the done button, the missed button, and also the date. And I can close it. And it has already duplicated the sort from our table view, so I don't have to set this up again. I'm also going to create a calendar view. For this, I click on today by right click. I click on duplicate. I name it calendar. And then the layout I'm going to change to calendar view. Everything is set up correctly. And we can also now remove the filter by clicking on the symbol, because in the calendar view, we want to see everything. So I just click here to delete this filter. And now you can see we also have a calendar view where we can see all of our habits for each day. The next thing we're going to set up are some data charts. The first one we're going to create is a donut chart. For doing so, I click on the plus symbol, then I click on charts. If you are on the free plan, you cannot use charts as of now, but the rest of this template is completely easily usable for you as well. To edit this chart, I click on the three-dot menu in the top, and first I want to give it a name, and I call it the day score. And I also want to change the icon. I change the chart type to donut, and in the what to show, I leave it on status. Each slice represents count. The only thing I want to change is the manual sort. So I'm just going to activate manual, and I'm going to hide the ones with no status. And done, missed, and pending is the order I want to see. I'm going to leave the color set to auto. And in the more style options, I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller because I don't need to see all of this. And I'm going to deactivate the legend. And because it's the day score, we also need to set a filter. And we set the date to, again, as before, start date is, and we choose today from the list. So now, after closing this menu, you can see the day score for today is we have 3 total habits today, but we have done 2 of them and we have missed 1 of them. Then we're going to create another chart for our analytics, which is going to be the daily streak chart. By clicking on the plus symbol, we create another chart. We go to the 3-dot menu again. I'm going to give it a different icon and I'm going to give it the name daily. The chart type is already set to bar chart. On the x-axis, I want to see the date. And I want to set this one to day. I want to sort it from old to new. And I also want to throw out 0 values because on days where this habit is not tracked, I don't want to see it in the counter. On the y-axis, we're going to set it to count. And we're also going to group it by status. I'm going to leave the sort by to status ascending and the color set to auto. And in the more styles, again, I'm going to change the height to small. I'm going to change the group style to %. I'm going to set the grid lines to none and the legend is going to be deactivated again. And now we have to set up one more important thing here in the filter menu, because I don't want this chart to show data for all different habits. I want it to show the data only for one. So I'm going to open the filter menu and I'm going to filter the habit by clicking on this menu. And on the 3-dot menu, I'm going to create an advanced filter to have a better overview, which is easier to edit. And here I only want to show the habits that contain the name wake up at 6. So, which is our first habit that we have created. and I'm gonna add another filter rule. I add another filter group, and here I'm gonna set the date to start date is on or before today, and I want to also minimize the data that is able to be shown by adding another filter rule by setting it to end, and I want the start date to be relative to the past 1 month. This makes sure that this chart is only going to show a maximum of the last 30 days for this habit data, and you will see that we're going to implement this view into our dashboard later. Now I also want the same to have a weekly view, so I'm going to duplicate this chart and I'm gonna call it weekly. And in the menu here, we have to change only one thing by going down to date. And instead of day, we're gonna set it to week. The other thing we have to change is again our filter, which is now already preset by duplicating it. The only thing that I'm gonna change is here I wanna see more than 1 month, because in the weekly view we're gonna have less bars, so we can put more of them. So I'm gonna use this to show up to an entire quarter or 3 months. I'm also going to do the same steps one more time to create another view for the monthly view. So I'm going to duplicate the weekly chart and I'm going to call it monthly. I click on what to show, and here I'm going to set the date to month. I open the filter menu again to change the rules here. And because this is a monthly view, it will anyway have very compressed data. So this I'm just going to change to past 1 year. And that's why we're also going to set up the last one by duplicating the monthly chart. And this one we're going to call yearly. And here we change the date, as you have probably guessed, to year. And we're gonna filter our filter rules again. And for this one, I'm simply gonna remove this last filter rule because it will take a couple of years to create multiple bars here. For now, we are done here in the habits database. So now we jump back into the habit tracker dashboard before starting to work on our streak counter database. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial so far, and please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel. My goal is to reach 1000 subscribers before the end of this year, so your support really matters in making that happen. And now on to the next part. So let's jump back, and by clicking here in the bottom, I'm creating a new block. I type /data and I choose another full page database, which I'm going to call streak counter, and I'm going to give it a stair icon, as in climbing stairs with our streaks. This view I'm going to rename to data, and I'm going to give it another database icon. Now we're going to create one database entry, which is going to be the only database entry in this page. Just click on new page and type in streak counter to create this entry. And now we're going to have to connect this database with our habits database. So we start off by creating a new relation property by clicking on the plus and then typing relation. And now I'm going to choose the habit database, and then I click on add relation. And before we continue our work here in the streak counter database, now we actually need to connect some data. So let's quickly jump back into the habits database by going back to the dashboard. I can use this moment to move also my streak counter in here. And then I'm going to open the habit database once again. And now I have to click on this one, and I'm going to select the streak counter because I want to connect every habit with the streak counter. And I can just use this one to set it up once, and then I drag it down all the way to the bottom. And now we have to do one more important thing to our habit templates. For each of the templates, we need to make sure that they have this automatic connection to the streak counter. So let's just jump into the templates quickly and edit the 3 of them. And we define the streak counter relation to already include the streak counter value database entry by default for each template. So now I've done this for the wake up template, and I'm also going to do the same for the meditation template. And I'm also going to do the same for the no coffee template. And that's already it. So now we are jumping back into the habit tracker and back into the streak counter. Back in our streak counter, you can see now that all our habits are correctly connected to our streak counter database, but I don't want to see it like this, taking up so much space. So I'm gonna deactivate wrap columns in the layout menu. Now we can begin to set up our formulas to actually calculate the current and the longest streak of our habits. For this, I have to create several formulas. So let's start with one formula first. We create a new property with the formula type, and this one I'm going to call wake up at 6. I'm going to jump out of this, and now I can just open the formula editor by clicking into the field here. All right, now I'm going to copy and paste the formula step by step so you can see what's happening with each step. To do so, just pay attention to what happens here with the formula result line. In step 1, we're going to call the habits database to show us a list of all the habits in the database as a simple list. In step 2, we're going to filter this list to only show us the habits that fit the name wake up at 6 in the morning. Then we're going to sort this list by the date to make sure that it's in the order from newest to latest. In the 4th step, instead of showing us the name of the habit, we wanted to show us the status so that we can determine which ones are done and which ones are missed. In the 5th step, we're going to replace everything that has the status done with a checkmark emoji with a number 1 instead. And in step number 6, we're going to do the same for all the missed statuses, which we're going to replace with a 0. In step 7, for all the pending statuses, we're just going to leave these empty so that today is just never counted towards our streak. In step number 8, we remove all the commas from this new 1 and 0 list that we have just created. In step number 9, we remove all the content before and including the last 0. So only the last streak of 1s is remaining. And lastly, in step 10, we're going to calculate the length of this row. So in this case, for the wake up habit, we are going to have a length of 4. So our current streak of this habit is 4 for the other habits. Now I don't have to do a lot of work anymore. I can just duplicate this property and rename it to meditation. Of course, you can adjust it to your own habit. I'm gonna jump in and edit the formula. And now all I have to change is the name to meditation and press save. I'm gonna duplicate this one more time. And this one we call no coffee. And we're gonna open the formula editor again and change this one to no coffee. And now we're also going to set up the formulas to calculate the longest streak. To do so, I'm going to create another formula property. This one I'm going to call wake up at 6 in the morning and then followed by longest so that we can differentiate between the current and the longest streak formula easily. And then I click into the field to open a new formula editor. Make sure to pay attention to the results line of the formula as it changes with each step. In step number 1, again, we call the habit database to get the full list. Then in step number 2, we filter them to only show us the ones where wake up is the name of the habit. Step number 3, again, we sort them by date. Step number 4, we make sure to see the status in our list. And then, as before, we change the done status to a 1. And this time we change the missed status to an empty space. And then we replace the pending status again just with an empty value to erase it from the list. In this step, again, we're gonna remove all the commas from the list, which as you can see has now left us with 3 1s and 4 1s. And now we have reintroduced a comma to the list, but this time not to separate each individual number, but instead we separate the different strings. So now we have one string of 1, 2, 3 1s and one string of 1, 2, 3, 4 1s. In this step, we're gonna sort this string, which in this case doesn't make any difference. But what it does is it always moves the string with the longest collection of 1s to the end. So it makes sure that our longest streak is always the string at the end. In this step, we make sure that we only see this last string. All the previous strings are removed. So no matter how many habits there are, the longest streak is going to be moved to the end. And lastly, again, with the length function, we can now see how many 1s this string made up of. In this case, again, 4. Now we have the final result for our longest streak for the wake up habit, which is 4. And I'm gonna save this again. And now we can duplicate this formula again for the other 2 habits. Okay, now as you can see, I have created them for also the meditation and also for the no coffee habit. And as it seems, our longest streak for the coffee is a streak of 4. For meditation, it's a streak of 3 days. And for the no coffee habit, it's a streak of 2 days. Now there's only 2 small things to do. The first thing, I'm gonna rename this streak counter title streak counter. And I'm also gonna add a donut chart view for the current streak, which I later wanna add to our dashboard. To do so, I click on the plus, I click on chart, then I make a right click and click on rename, and I'm gonna call it current streak. And I'm also going to add a stairs icon to it. As the chart type, I select the donut chart. I'm gonna set what to show to streak counter. Here, I'm gonna choose now the habit. In this case, I'm gonna choose wake up at 6 and I'm gonna set it to values. And in the more style options, I'm gonna change the legend to turn it off. And now what this is gonna show us for each individual habit, the current streak. And I've only created this in here because then later it's easy to set up our dashboard. And this concludes the work on our streak counter database. Now we're jumping back into the habit tracker dashboard and once again into our habits database. The first thing I'm going to do is quickly rename the streak counter relation to actually streak counter relation because I want to use the name streak counter for our next formula. To create another formula, I click on the plus and I type in formula again. And I'm going to call this one the streak counter. And I can now click into it to open the formula editor. And here I'm going to copy and paste the entire formula and I'm going to walk you through how the whole thing works. You can see the result in the end is already showing us the longest streak is 4 and the current streak is 3. And here we start with function that styles and makes the text bold. And then in the middle, we just have an ifs conditioned formula where the formula is checking which habit are we currently looking at and then pulls the relevant data. And then each habit contains of this little section where it checks for the name and then finds the correct data from the streak counter relation for the longest streak, including a label, followed by a line break, followed by the current streak and the current streak data. And the same we do for the meditation and also for no coffee. And if you set up a new habit, we can just copy and create a new line break here and add this section. And then we can click on save and you will see it populate for the different habits. And now if we play around with the status buttons a little bit, you can also see that this changes. And now we're going to set up another last formula, which is going to show us the progress between these two streaks. We're gonna create a new formula and this one I will call streak progress and open the formula editor, copy and paste the formula, which you can find, of course, in the free template that I provide. And as you can see here at the top, we have a similar setup. We have a rounding function, and in the middle, we have a section for each of the habits. Waking up at 6, meditation, and no coffee. And here it checks again for the name. And then for this corresponding one, it pulls the data from the streak counter and then divides the current streak through the longest streak. And as before, if you wanted to add this for a new habit, simply copy that section, create a line break here and add it, and then change the name and the properties to fit your own habit. That's it. And I can press save here, and you will now see that this populates for all the habits with a number. But actually, I want it to be a little bit more visual, so I click on edit property, and then I change the number format to %, and I will also add a bar to it with the color blue, which you can obviously customize to whatever you want. And now you can see that we have a small visual indicator that tells us how far we are still away from our longest streak with our current streak. And now that we have added these two formulas to the mix, let's also add them to the views that we have created. So in the today view, I now click on properties, and I'm also gonna add our streak counter, and I'm also gonna move the streak progress. And in the layout, I'm gonna turn on wrap all properties so that we have a nice line break in the longest and current streak overview. Then I'm gonna do the exact same in the yesterday view. And in the list view, I actually also want to see the streak counter. So let's move that in front of the buttons and the streak progress as well. All right, now I jump back into the all view, and this concludes our complete database setup for the habit tracker, which means we can now focus finally on setting up our habit tracker dashboard. So as you can probably tell, I like to separate my dashboards into different sections. So I'm going to jump into a new block and I'm going to type /callout again to create another gray block, which I'm going to move to the top. I'm going to type in 2 hashtags followed by a space. And this one I'm going to call daily tracker. And for a callout, you can even define an icon, where in my case, I would like to put a checkmark icon. And I also duplicate this one, and this one I'm gonna give a bar chart icon, and I change the heading to analytics. I'm gonna add another block to have a little bit more space, and then I'm gonna create a linked database view by typing in linked. I click on linked view of database. I select our habit database that we have created earlier. And here now from the list, I can see the different views that I've already created for this database. So I can just choose this one. In this case, I want to have the today view. I click on it, and then the only thing I have to do in this view is hide the database title. And I want to add another view for my yesterday one and the list view. And one thing that I'm going to do now actually to this page is I'm going to go to the 3-dot menu here on the top and turn this page into a full width page. To add the next view, I'm going to make a new block underneath this section. And now I'm going to type linked one more time. I create another linked view. Again, I click on the habit database as we have done before. And now I'm going to choose the day score chart. And in here, again, I can hide the database title. And now I'm gonna grab this linked view because I don't want this to be below. Instead, I want to drag it here to the side. And because this one doesn't need too much space, I can also grab the column here to make it a little bit smaller. So now when I click missed on any of today's habits, I can see this also reflected in the chart. Last but not least, we're gonna set up our analytics section. To do so, we jump in here and I'm gonna create several new blocks so that we have some space to work. And I'm gonna type /linked again to open another view of a database. Here I'm going to select the streak counter first, and we're going to add the current streak view that we have recently created that shows the current streak as a small donut chart. I'm also creating another one, and here I'm going to choose the habit database. And now I'm going to add the daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly charts. All right, now we have the data for all the different time frames, and now let's clean it up a little bit and make it nicer. So I go to the top of the analytics section and I'm going to type /toggle to create a toggle list, which I'm going to start by writing the alarm emoji as well as the first habit, which is wake up at 6 o'clock. I can now open this toggle and move the different views inside. And I'm going to place them right next to each other by simply dragging and dropping, which makes all of them take up less space, but still make them visible nicely. So now I have a nice toggle for my wake up at 6 o'clock habit that shows me the current streak, the daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly data, and I can easily open and close it, not only to hide the data, but also to let the dashboard load a little bit faster. And now I'm gonna add a divider section below. And now I just mark these two sections and duplicate them twice because we have 3 habits. And now I change the names here. But now one thing we have to remember for these analytics views, because we just duplicated them, we also need to change the data being pulled here. So I'm gonna open this one as a full page. I'm gonna go to the settings. And instead of showing the wake up value, I'm going to choose the meditation value, and then we can go back. But for these charts, we have defined these always with the filters. And here I'm going to have to change the contains value to each individual one. And the same I have to do for all these views. And the same I'm going to also do for the no coffee habit. All right, and this concludes the analytics section setup, and with it, the whole setup of this dashboard. Our dashboard is now set. We have our today view, yesterday view, list view, and the day score. and we can always check the analytics for each habit one by opening these toggles. I hope you enjoyed this build along tutorial and that it helps you to build the perfect habit tracker for your own Notion setup. Remember that you can get a free copy of this template by following the link in the description below. And if you do, make sure to also leave a review on the Notion Marketplace. Please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel to help me reach my 1000 subscriber goal before the end of the year. And leave a comment below to let me know what kind of tutorial or template you would like to see next. Last but not least, make sure to subscribe to my free newsletter to stay up to date with the latest Notion features and to be among the first to hear about my newest templates.